Welcome to Back to School Night. My name is Ms. Strickers. I'm going to be talking about a required sophomore class, Christology, the study of Christ, and our sub-theme, Who Do You Say That I Am? Our agenda for this evening, I only have 10 minutes, is as follows: a brief introduction, course information, and how to help your child succeed in here. I want to begin with just a brief intro. First of all, I want to apologize that I'm not here. This is actually my 17th year at St. Ignatius, and in my career of teaching, it's the first time I've actually missed back to school night. The reason I'm not here with you this evening is because I'm in South Bend, Indiana. I'm at the University of Notre Dame, where I went for undergrad, and I serve on an alumni board. This is our fall meeting, and unfortunately, the timing overlapped with back to school night. I work in the religious studies department. I've taught the sophomore class before. For many years, I've taught the junior ethics, morality, and social justice class. Now, I find this quite poignant because one of the big questions in ethics is, what difference does Christ bring to the good? I hope that as a result of taking this class, students have an answer for that ethics class. And lastly, my baby is senior elective. It's called Sports and Spirituality. It's a course I created, and I can talk a little bit more about that. I work in the Office of Adult Spirituality in addition to teaching 3 sections of this class. This office is a wonderful gift to the SI community. It offers ministry and programming for all educators, alumni, parents, and more. I encourage you to find out more about all of our resources. And lastly, this is kind of a fun fact. That's why I have the asterisks. I'm actually back. I taught for 3 years at St. Francis High School in Mountain View. I worked as assistant athletic director. I loved the community down there. Lancerland is a beautiful place. However, I live in the city, and the commute and the cost of gas proved to be too much. Furthermore, this opportunity in adult spirituality opened up, and what a gift. So here I am, and it's good to be back. This is year number 23 in the classroom, and much like Tom Brady, we're beginning our 23rd season. However, that might be the only thing that he and I have in common. Who knows? Just 2.0, a few things is my commitment to service and spirituality. I've been an immersion leader. I do go on Kairos. I say this because I will be only encouraging your son or daughter to apply for these programs. I think they can be transformational. I've already talked to them about the Jesuit family teach-in. I've coached for many years. I actually came to SI in 2003 because I was coaching rowing. I coached cross country for 9 years, and I was the varsity girls golf coach at St. Francis. I worked with our JV squad here at SI. As I mentioned, kind of my passion is sports and spirituality. I've written a book. I have an ongoing blog. It's a huge part of my ministry, and I try to find ways to include it in class. Lastly, I'm committed in my personal life to service. So like I said, I'm on an alumni board, but I'm also a parishioner at St. Vincent de Paul Parish in the city. I mention this because I think it's important, just so that you know that as a religious studies teacher, I'm committed to the development of my faith and a faith community. So let's talk about Christology, and look at this image of Christ. This is actually my favorite image. The reason for that is because it shows, and you can go ahead and hold up your hand, put your right hand over his right eye, and then your left hand over his left eye. The eyes are different. That's intentional. This icon portrays Jesus as both fully human and fully divine. It incorporates his nature. This question of being fully human and fully divine must have been something for the disciples to carry. This gospel passage is from Mark. Now, your child would have read Mark's gospel last year, freshman year. This year we'll look at Matthew. But the passage is largely the same, and it's asking the same question. And the answer ultimately is about relationship. Who am I? Right? Am I Elijah? Am I a prophet? And they answer. It is my hope that a young person might be able to answer this question for him or herself in this semester. One thing I would like to point out is that the Catholic tradition does emphasize both faith and reason. It's not on faith alone. There is an intellectual tradition. And so that will underscore our study of Christ as in both theology, but we'll look at a historical, cultural, and personal perspective. I'd also like to add that while I mentioned that was my favorite image of Christ, our images change, and that's something I'm inviting sophomores to consider. How do our images of God change? So this is Caravaggio. It's a realistic painting. It's St. Thomas putting his hands into his side. For an extended period of time, this was my favorite image. I still love it, but it has changed, and that's a personal reflection on why. But we also want to extend our images, right? Beyond what we know. So this is Jesus of Nazareth and what he probably looked like, given the region of the world that he was from. So we'll look at this Jesus of history and this Christ of faith. We'll look at interpretation, description, and abstraction, combining history and theology. So just to return to that question, well, who or what is informing our image of Jesus? Is it scripture? Is it religion? Is it culture? Is it art and media? Is it personal or communal experience? How do we see Jesus in light of all these lenses? Just a thought or a couple of ideas on the class culture and norms for the questions that we will be asking as we study the life of Christ. The first thing is that class is always begins with prayer. It is both led by me and the students. It is creative and it is guided. Point number 2 is that I do not allow cell phones. While at SI we allow phones in the hallways, and as students are passing, once they come into my classroom, it is put away. Point number 3 is that homework is always assigned for a purpose. I say this because when they have homework, it is not an option. It is required. Why? Because we will be using it for an in-class activity and discussion. Point number 4 is that I truly encourage questions. Sophomores are great at this. So for example, one of them said, well, how do we know that Jesus did not sin? What a great question. Point number 5 is that I encourage exit tickets. I will have a number of these because it allows me to see what students learn, what they understand, what questions they have, and what insights they can provide. It's actually pretty fun to read them. And lastly is that I do make a strong effort to integrate the Ignatian pedagogical paradigm. The IPP is an approach to teaching that says, look to the interests and passions of your students and get that to engage them. Now, this is a both and. I like to share my passions. I am a huge tennis fan. I've been loving the US Open, and I've followed the career of Serena Williams for many, many years. And I talk to my students about a legacy and how that might be different than achievements. And so we talked about Serena, her legacy, and a new player newer, who's not much older than they are, Coco Gauff. That was a great way to start class. Lastly, I want to talk to you about success. What does success look like for your son or daughter in this class? Well, it happens in partnership with you. So please ask your child what we are discussing or reading in the life of Jesus. Please encourage them to pray in our class and offer intentions. Maybe at dinner you'll talk about events in your community or the world, or people who need our prayers. And lastly, I encourage you to encourage them to be this, the face of Christ. This is a story that we read at the beginning of class. I had them identify what was interesting, positive, or negative. But this is a story of Matt Swinton. He graduated from Notre Dame in 2012. Matt's parents didn't even know if they should ever save for college because they didn't know if he would make it to college. They weren't sure if he should go to Notre Dame because of the cold climate. Not only did Matt go to Notre Dame, he graduated, but he graduated because his peers took good care of him. The university said, we can accommodate Matt in his needs. They offered professional help, but the professional help proved to be, it was complicated. So his friends stepped up. His friends bathed him. His friends woke him up in the middle of the night so that he could roll over so he wouldn't have bed sores. His friends listened to his jokes. Matt is a stand-up comic. So the author said to the Swinton's family, when is the last time you saw the face of Christ? And they said, right now. It's Matt's friends. If If a young person can enter my class and identify the last time they saw the face of Christ, or how they can be the face of Christ to others, to me, that will be a success. Thank you for your time. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. Here's to a great year. Thank you so much.